Good afternoon and welcome to Beholden To Truth. It is your humble host Joshua here with you for another happy hour vlog. Hanging out in the mobile office. You guys know the drill. Outside of the gym, sipping the pre-workout, getting caffeinated. Feeling amazing. It's a very, very good day today, you guys. These days are rare for me. Anytime I'm working on a project for a long time, and I consider a long time, typically a month or more, and I finally get the project out there into the world, that's like a big birthing moment. It's like a woman who just gave birth. That's how I feel, you know? I've been gestating this for about a month, this most recent documentary. And sometimes I call it a documentary, sometimes I call it a course, because it really is an educational course. Sometimes I talk about maybe it's a documentary series because it's 2.5 hours long worth of material, and so maybe it'll get sliced up into a few different pieces, so as a series. But for the first drop, I'm just going to go ahead and put the whole thing on Substack. And in fact, it's going to be live by the time you see this vlog. So I got the upload started before I left my house. It's a very large file. I think it's like 10 gigabytes. So it is uploading right now to Substack.
This A&M professor asks, when is it okay to kill whites? New York professor says having a white nuclear family promotes white supremacy. College professor says some white people may have to die to solve racism. Professor tweets that white people should commit mass suicide. College professor says kill cops, kill all white people, and kill the straights. Professor says all I want for Christmas is white genocide. Trinity College professor calls white people inhuman. Let them fucking die. USC professor calls for a Holocaust against all white people. College professor says white people are conditioned to commit mass murder.
White Sentience. And it goes into all of the narrative strategies, all of the emotional blackmail all of us white people have been beaten over the head with for our entire lives about the race situation, about our race in particular, how great all the other races are, how terrible our race is, how in fact our race might actually not even exist. Have you ever heard this? Well, what do you mean by white? Like the white race? I mean, who's really considered white? Nobody ever asks these questions when you talk about Latinos or Asians or Jews, funnily enough. Nobody really drills into the question, wait a minute, hold on. Are Jews people who descended from Judea, or just ethnically speaking here? Because that would kind of disqualify like 90% or more of all theoretically Jews. People don't care to ask those questions, obviously. They only want to dig into and deconstruct the concept of the white race. And there's reasons for that. It's because Western civilization, white civilization, European civilization is the bulwark against the strongest evil forces in the world. You know, the global spread of communism, the endeavor to enslave the entire globe. Whether you think that's a decentralized group of just simply powerful elite people of all races, or it is, in some people's opinion, the Zionist endeavor to, not specifically limited to Zionism, which is more about the creation of Israel, but Israel is the headquarters for global Jewish supremacy. And according to their own doctrine, they believe that they are to be the inheritors and the leaders of all of mankind, all non-Jews being relegated to a subclass called Goyim. This is what's written in the Babylonian Talmud. It's what they believe. And so whoever it is that you think is trying to install global communism, white civilization has been the shield against that for millennia. And so, obviously, there are times where whites spread their wings and got ahead of their skis and perhaps went into endeavors that they shouldn't have. Now, you can argue that those doing that at the time were infiltrated by non-whites, especially non-Christians, And that's a very deep subject, and that's obviously not what I want to vlog about right now. That's a whole other detour. Today is a special celebratory day because White Sentience, the 2.5-hour nuclear bomb of a documentary, is available for you guys right now on Substack. And I just dropped the whole thing in one unclipped 2.5-hour video. I think for a period of time, it's going to be exclusive on Substack. So maybe a week, maybe 2 weeks. I still haven't made the previous documentary special about group behavior limited, or it's still limited to only Substack. So you never know. This one might just stay permanently limited on Substack. I always struggle with this dilemma of I want the truth to be told loud, proud to all corners of the world. I'm certainly not trying to gatekeep any information. But I've talked before about the necessity of de-risking all of my work. You know, the years I've put into this, the thousands and thousands of hours and all the sacrifices in my personal life and financially, the thousands of dollars invested and never, not even a penny returned. So trying to create a Substack that is potentially monetizable is going to help grow the platform, de-risk it against censorship, and potentially serve up some resources that I can reinvest in the platform for marketing and actually amplifying the message. That's the game plan that I set out on. It's been about 2 months since I created that Substack, a little less than that. And we're growing pretty good. I think we got like 45-ish followers over there, but we need a lot more than that. I mean, that is peanuts. And so I need everybody who watches this, at a minimum, get yourself a free membership, preferably cough up a whole $12 and get yourself a paid membership, and you'll get access to the exclusive video content. You'll get access to the exclusive ebooks. You'll get early releases. If you get an annual membership, you can actually schedule a one-on-one 30-minute Ask Me Anything where we can talk about whatever you want. So the documentary, White Sentience, feels very, very good to have finally delivered that for you guys. I've been promising it and working hard in the sweatshop, in the editing suite for, like I said, about a month. And all of the ideas have been percolating for years. I've already seen all of the data and the sources, the studies, and I know them all. I know most of them from the top of my head, but when you're going to put together a polished package, you have to go and pull in the sources, link them, so people aren't thinking that you're just expressing your opinion that sub-Saharan Africans have a 68 IQ, expressing your opinion that 9 out of 10 black people vote for mass immigration, income redistribution, feminism, abortion. It's not my opinion. That's the exit poll data, okay? That's the Pew Research data. If you have a problem with the data, go talk to them. So, yeah, big day. Very, very happy to have that up for you guys. And I put a trailer for it in the last vlog that I uploaded this morning. Just a short vlog, like 30 minutes long. And not any really particular groundbreaking stuff in that one, just kind of going over some topical topical and timely subjects, particularly the Elon Musk, Donald Trump breakup, the PSYOP that we're all supposed to be watching. Talked about that, but I included the trailer for White Sentience at the beginning of that vlog. And I got a comment on that asking me a pretty cool question that I wanted to explain for you guys, because it's one of those things where, like, I knew it, I knew why I did it, why I chose that title, but they pointed out something interesting and it's worth explaining. And so the question in the comment on YouTube was, why do you say white sentience rather than white consciousness? And it's not that I say it in substitute or rather than white consciousness. I talk about white consciousness too, and to some degree they are interchangeable, but I would like to articulate how there is a very important and nuanced difference between the two. And I'm not asking for everybody to go and change the vernacular when they talk about the issue of white genocide and start using my language of white sentience. I'm just explaining why I chose that title and maybe giving you some food for thought about, is it white consciousness that we're talking about, or is it white sentience? So let's do the one that everybody knows first. Consciousness is just an awareness, and it's an awareness that anybody can hold. For example, I have a consciousness of how communism works. I have a consciousness of the Muslims and their faith. I have a consciousness of the Jews, of their ethnicity and their religion. I have a consciousness of Israel and its nationalistic endeavors, right? And so, yes, I also have a consciousness of white people being a distinct group with distinct interests. I have a consciousness of the demographical history of America being 90% white for the first 350 of its 400 years. And so it's not saying that when you talk about white people as a group and our owed entitled ownership of America's leadership position and its majority, you can refer to that as white consciousness. There's nothing wrong with saying that. It's also something that other people could say as well. You could have a black person, a Jewish person, Asian, or whoever else say, yeah, I understand white consciousness. Here's the thing though. Sentience is an exclusive awareness that can only be held by the self. Sentience refers to a self-awareness of one's own self, not a consciousness for others. It is a sentience of, as I said, self-identity, meaning white sentience can only be held by white people. And here's a practical example of that. Can I be sentiently aware of what it is like to be a woman? Can I have sentience of womanhood? I can't. It's for obvious reasons, right? I can't have a sentience of what it is like to be an Israeli or a Kenyan, or pick whatever nation. I can't have black sentience because I am not black. I'm not African. But I can, and only other whites can, have white sentience. And this is related to what I've been vlogging about recently in the struggle with my dad. He doesn't even believe that white consciousness, that white people are a people. And so that's one struggle. But what our true endeavor is, we don't give a fuck if other people recognize white people as a distinct group. That's far less important as white people themselves being sentient of their own identity, of their own ancestors not being the same or interchangeable with other people's ancestors. If your ancestors were African, you would not look the way you do. You would not have the same set of intellectual, exploratory, innovative, many different other attributes that are unique to the European people. It's not a matter of superiority, it's just different attributes. In the same way where, because we are whites, on average, our ancestors handed us a set of genes that, on average, do not have the same muscularity potential or the same average height as Africans or Asians, right? It is a different set of biology that we were handed. And it is a different cultural inheritance that we were handed. And it is a different national allegiance that we were handed. Our European nations, our European ancestors, the accomplishments of the European people, only European people can be truly sentient and actually connected at a deep, deep level with those things. There are other people who can be conscious of them. They can be conscious of Western civilization and its accomplishments, but they can't have a true sentience. Do you see the difference? And so that's why when I was actually listening to music a couple months ago and I heard this song talking about consciousness and sentience, and I was like, it just clicked. It was a light bulb moment for me where I was like, sentience. That is different than consciousness. And that is exactly what white people need right now. Awareness, consciousness on the national, global level, whatever, of white people being a unique group of people who need to be protected and are owed all the same rights as others. Definitely, we want that message out there. But what we really want are white people having sentience of themselves, because they are not the same as others. Black parents would tell their children this all the time. Jews write this into their religion. So don't go finger waving and moralizing me when I say white people are not like others. You have Jews who sit there and say, according to God, we are not like others. And I don't conflate our difference with superiority. However, Jews say that they are God's chosen, special people. And you dig deeply into their religious doctrine, it is chosen for leadership, that the others are incapable. The Goyim are incapable of leading themselves. They need leadership from Jews. Okay, so that's the belief that they hold. That's the worldview that Jews have internalized as a culture, not just religiously, but as a people as well. That's actual racial superiority. That's projecting inferiority on other races. So you want to go over here and criticize me for simply saying white people are different biologically, nationally, culturally, technologically, in terms of our accomplishments. We're allowed to identify around all of those different subjects, our languages, our judicial practices. Seriously, the architecture, it's all different. And we are part of that. Whether you want to claim it or not, you are part of it. And so we need white sentience. And that is why I created a 2.5 documentary laying it out, saying how important it is that white people wake up. You have to be self-aware, because even if you want to check out, even if you want to believe it's just not that important that I am part of this group. Okay, but the problem is all of the other racial groups don't feel the same. They all feel a strong connection to their co-racial peers, their co-ethnic peers. They have no hesitation to demonstrate pride in their race. They have no hesitation to nepotistically work between themselves and advocate for themselves, promote themselves, provide opportunities for themselves before whites. So even if you want to check out and pretend like it's not a real thing, that the white race isn't real, and even if it is real, I take no pride in that. Okay, you're just a sucker. You're just naive. You know, I hate to be so blunt about it, but you're living in fantasy land. You have the understanding of a child. This is like thinking crime doesn't exist. Oh, I'm just gonna leave my house unlocked and my car unlocked and leave my wallet on the table. And it's like, okay, were you born yesterday? Did you not notice society around you? So that's the explanation of white sentience. I think you guys get it. I know you guys are high IQ. I know you get it.
The number one question you guys are asking me is, how can I wake people up? And you also ask, how can I help support you? And so I have a solution for both of those questions. You can head over to my Substack. You'll be able to get exclusive early access to all of my documentaries, my long format content, free ebooks, and even a chance to talk to me one-on-one. You can do Ask Me Anythings. There's several different membership options for your budget, whatever fits your lifestyle. Head on over and get yourself a subscription now.
There's a very closely related subject that is in the political spectrum as it relates to white sentience and white people having a group interest. And that is what they call identity politics. You see people like Tucker Carlson, Matt Walsh, Michael Knowles, all the other white, allegedly conservative politics who are supposed to be representing heritage America conservatism. They all say, this is very important to learn and understand, that identity politics is for the left. Identity politics is identity politics is an instrument of division, of Marxism. They say that we don't subscribe to anything we don't subscribe to identity politics. We don't want to play that game. That only leads to division. Now, once again, this is a misconception that division is always bad. Well, when the enemy is at the gates and when the enemy is amongst you and has infiltrated you, it might be a good idea to divide yourself from these people who have conflicts of interest with you and your entire race and your faith and the identity of this nation. Maybe we should actually consider, wait, hold on. Does this country have an identity? I've talked about it before. Is our identity our super strong economy? The fact that we have the strongest economy in the world, the strongest military in the world? Is that our identity? How strong our military and our economy are? Is our identity our judicial system? That it is, on the surface, fair and just? Is there anything at all that maybe we should acknowledge in our identity in regards to, I don't know, the people who built the country and how they felt about the country and its identity? They said that this was a land for white Christian people fleeing religious persecution of the Church of England so that they could practice whatever denomination of Christianity they wanted. Not any religion in the world, by the way. That's not what they wanted. That's not what they prescribed. When they said there needs to be a separation of church and state, which is, by the way, not in the Constitution, it was in the personal writings. But the argument for separation of church and state is not that religion should not be involved whatsoever with government. It is to say that the government should not define which denomination of Christianity its citizenry must participate in. That's all that the separation of church and state was ever in reference to. And so when they say, these mainstream pundits, they say that identity politics is just for Marxist people who want us all to fight against each other. So we're not supposed to fight against people who think Christ is burning in hell, and we're not supposed to fight against people who hate our ancestors and who love the idea of whites becoming a minority in this country. We're not supposed to fight against them. Tucker, is that your understanding? Matt Walsh, who has a phobia of identity politics and think that's only for the leftists. This does require a paradigm shift, because in the age of DEI, identity politics was used to pander to blacks. They had no problem identifying blacks as a group with group interests, a distinct group, Latinos, women, gays, trannies, all this other stuff. They had no problem using identity to advance their political causes. And so they say, well, we shouldn't reduce ourselves to their tactics. They played identity politics in order to push the woke agenda, push DEI, all that stuff. But the problem is like I said, we do have to divide ourselves. We are not like them. We don't have the same interest as them. Division, as Jesus himself said, he did not come to bring peace and harmony and have everybody hold hands and sing Kumbaya. Okay? This is not a children's television program. This is the real world. This is the fallen world. This is the world where God designed us with in-group bias. This is the real world where God himself divided the nations, aka the people of the world, into separate physical places and drew borders around them and told them, do not mix. That's the world we live in. Those people have different identities. They have different attributes of peoplehood. And so this is a conversation that a lot of people think is a no-brainer. Oh, I don't want to touch identity politics. Actually, no, this country does have an identity. You have an identity. These things have to be protected. Our group has an identity. Surprising, I know, but it actually does. A group cannot exist without an identity. A group can only aggregate and collate around itself if there is a cohesive identity. And this is the problem with America. It lost its identity, and therefore it is deracinating in real time to the point where there is no cohesive understanding of what America even exists for. So, revisit that concept of identity politics, your own identity, and being sentient of that identity as an individual and as part of a collective. It's critical. This is baked into human behavior. The desire to be part of a group, the desire to be amongst your own kin, to be around people who sound like you, who have the same understanding of the world and history as you do, who practice the same faith as you do. There's a reason why you naturally, it's not forced, it happens naturally, that you are comfortable and you take your guard down around those people and you're not anxious and suspicious. You feel safe around them. It's because they share so much in common with you. It's because that's God's design. You know what I'm saying, guys? We just got to talk through this stuff. Rationally, it makes sense. People used to operate on the basis of common sense. But in the age of mass media and public education, all of that common sense just got beaten out of them. And so we are trying to restore these things. I talked the other day about puking up the denial pill. We got to sucker punch all these whites so that they puke up the denial pill about being racially agnostic, thinking that it's completely irrelevant, that they don't belong to any kind of group, that they don't have an inheritance or any kind of debt to their co-racial group. You actually do. 600,000 dead white people in just the Civil War alone. Ever think about that? You ever think about the 300,000 mostly dead white guys who went to die for Israel? I don't know the numbers of the Revolutionary War off the top of my head. I don't know the numbers off of all the other wars of dead white guys who fought to protect Western civilization. How about the Crusades, where Christian white European men stood up and said, actually, I don't think this should be a Muslim continent, okay? I disagree. We should be grateful. We should be trying to pass that on to our generation. We should acknowledge the fact that the only people who did those things were Christians, were white Christians specifically. How many Africans and Arabs and East Indians and Asians and Jews stepped up to defend Christendom? How many of them self-sacrificed to form America? Yeah, that number is single digits. And so maybe you ought to take a look at the unique characteristics of the people who actually thought it was important to protect the identity of Western civilization, that these are countries built by and for our white European progeny, a land to protect our faith, which is Christianity. Another interesting comment I got on the video I posted this morning was somebody sympathizing with the subject of how I have to deal with these backstabbing reminders in my family about how awful of a person I am and how evil my worldviews are because I love my fellow white people and I'm trying to protect them. This person said they went through the same thing with their family. And they said one of the ways that helped them cope through that was that they stopped thinking about it in terms of being disowned by their family. Rather, another way to look at it that's probably healthier and is factually more true is that these people probably have disassociated with you. And the distinction there is that maybe you haven't thought this through before, but your family never owned you in the first place. In what way, especially once you became an independent adult, did your family have ownership of you? In no way. You know what I'm saying? Like, your family doesn't own you. You're not their slave. You're not their property. You might love them. They might love you. You might have great relationships with them. You might be willing to die for them. Hopefully, vice versa. But still, they don't own you. And so if they choose to disassociate from you, that doesn't mean that they have abrogated their ownership of you. They never had ownership of you. So it's not something that they could dissolve. Rather, their association with you, their relationship with you, whatever. If they've walked away from that, Okay, that's fine. We can deal with that. But I found myself saying in vlogs in the past, internally in my head, that, I've been disowned by my own family. But I think it is a healthier way to look at it. To say, these people, they never owned me in the first place. What was I thinking? I'm sure that the relationship that we previously valued, that I still expressed towards them, I'd still like to have a relationship with them. I didn't disassociate from them. They disassociated from me explicitly. So hopefully that'll help you guys also. And whether it's families, friends, church groups, whatever, you're not owned by any of those people, okay? You're only owned by your Creator. This lease on life that we have is not granted to you by your parents. It is granted to you by the grace of God. And only He has ongoing ownership of you eternally, more importantly. And so whether or not you want to focus on servitude of pretending like you're owned by your family, therefore you have to serve them and live up to their expectations here in this fallen world, to live up to your slave master, who is not God, I would suggest you try to live up to the expectations of the owner of your actual soul, who owned you from the moment you were conceived, who knew you before you were stitched together in your mother's womb. That's scripture, by the way. That's not Josh's beautiful language. That's one of the reasons we say that we are against abortion, because from the moment you are conceived, it's not 1 week later, it's not the first trimester, it's not 8 weeks, it's not as soon as you can hear a heartbeat. God said He knew you from the moment that you began to be stitched together in the womb, before there was one hair on your head. So look at this. We're just blowing out red pills today. We talk about the myth of identity politics. We talk about the myth of ownership. We talk about how to reevaluate this concept of consciousness versus sentience. I'm on a roll today. Look at this, man. And they're kind of rapid fire. There is another topic that I want to get into over here, though. This is some advice as well, because I get a lot of DMs every day, all these different social media platforms, but especially Instagram. I get somewhere 200, 300, 400 messages a day on Instagram. And I try to respond to as many as I can, obviously. And one individual I've been talking with over the last few weeks seems to be a younger guy, full of righteous indignation for what has happened to our people and our nation and the assault on our faith, Christendom as a whole. He's very upset about these things. And I think he probably just recently came to find out how bad things really are and how bad they've been for a very long time, and the trajectory in terms of where things are going in a very short period of time, in 20 years, when your kids are walking around this country as a minority, when 1 out of 7, 1 out of 8 people you see in this country are going to be white at all, when the government is run almost entirely by minorities who hate you, who think that your ancestors were evil, who have outlawed preaching the gospel. That's the future that's ahead of us on our current trajectory. And so when you get awakened to all these things, white genocide and so on, and you get awakened to who the puppeteers of this are and why they're doing what they're doing, righteous indignation is the right term. It is righteous to be upset and angry. But especially true for men, you have to control that anger. You have to be very careful to not let that anger spur violence. There's obviously a difference between violent thoughts and violent actions. Any man will tell you that, if they're being honest, they'll tell you that they have violent thoughts, and this goes back all through human history. Men have this fantasy. Little boys run around the house with paper guns and sticks and swords and whatever else because they have violent thoughts. They have thoughts about fighting other people. This is not controversial. It's not a promotion of violence. This is just baked into what it means to be a male. Your testosterone levels promulgate violent thoughts, and it is your Christianity and your maturity that keep those thoughts safely contained to only thoughts and not evolving into violent action. And so this young man is very upset. And so I've been trying to coach him as an older guy, as a guy who's been red pilled for a number of years, as a devout Christian. He wants to know. He wants to know, how are we going to fix this? When are people going to stand up and do something about all of this? And that's that righteous indignation, that male desire to see the conflict and want to resolve it. Those are noble and good things. We are designed that way. That's why we are the protectors of women, children, communities, our nation, Christendom. That's our role. That's what God designed us to do, to be the defenders, to diagnose these threats and conflicts, and to courageously go out and confront them. Okay, so there's nothing wrong with understanding that there is a violent risk here. Things might turn violent. When is that going to happen? How is it going to happen? We should not be the instigators of that violence, to be clear. But to be a man taking inventory of the situation and trying to figure out, how is all this shit going to work out? This is the story of all actual men throughout human history. The enemies at the gates, okay? The people enslaving one another. The people attacking you for your faith. The people going after your women. This is, as I said, the arc of human history. Men are on perpetual defense mode, trying to entertain hypotheticals in their head about if and when things turn violent, what is my role? What am I supposed to do? How should I prepare? And this has been beaten out of most men, sadly. This is why we have this generation of cucked men who fear confrontation, fear all forms of conflict. This is why they just let the criminals go and don't hold them accountable. This is why they get walked all over by women. This is why our nation suddenly said, you know what? Trannies in the street, stripping in front of children and teaching our children in libraries. Well, I don't want us to have to fight, so I guess I just won't say anything. This individual, as I said, is upset, and they're always asking me on a regular basis, when are we going to do something? When are we going to do something? And I'm always telling him, first and foremost, when you say do something, you have to understand the things that need to be done are already happening. The doing that you refer to is the information war. Look at my platform. I am doing the doing. Look at Nick's platform. He is doing the doing. Andrew Tate, Dan Blitzerian, Jake Shields. We are all doing what needs to be done. We are courageously putting ourselves out there, sacrificing our reputations, risking our careers, risking our futures, even risking our lives. Last year, Nick had a literal murderer show up to his front door with multiple guns, wanting to kill him, who ended up dead. The police came and killed the guy. Okay, so we are doing the doing, and there are dangers involved and sacrifices involved. There is no call to action in terms of violence. I've had to say this 10 million times. But here's the plot twist that I'm going to throw out here. It might just be that this is a young man who is really, really upset with the revelations that he has found. He wants to hold those accountable who are doing these things, and those things are righteous feelings. Maybe that's the case. It could also be the case that this is a federal agent. And this isn't like paranoia, tinfoil hat. Oh yeah, the feds are listening to all of us. I did an entire special about this before, about Fed infiltration of right-wing movements. I exposed Cass Sunstein, the Jewish policymaker who worked under the Obama administration and the Biden administration, who in 2008 authored a 60-page paper called Conspiracy Theories, where he laid out 5 different methods for the federal government to infiltrate conspiracy theory groups, conspiracies such as white genocide and the Great Replacement and Jews did 9/11, and pick whichever one you want. Whatever the government deems a conspiracy, they have justified sending federal agents to infiltrate people who hold those beliefs groups just to listen as a fly on the wall, but also to probe and prod them into action, to instigate false flags. We saw this with Gretchen Whitmer's kidnapping case, where you had these white nationalists allegedly plotting to kidnap Gretchen Whitmer, whatever her name is. I think she was running for mayor or governor. And it turns out they go pull the thread on this white supremacist domestic terrorist group, and they find out that the majority of the ringleaders of it are federal agents. The people who purchased the weapons for the people in the group were federal agents. You saw this with the Keepers. If you want a really dark rabbit hole, I'm not going to go here right now, but go to BitChute, go to Rumble, and go find out who the Keepers were. Small little hint: child sex trafficking, occult sacrifices. Why would the government be hanging out with them? Why would the government be doing things, participating with them? Why would they be covering for them? Yeah, you're going to enjoy watching that. So, Fed infiltration is documented and real. I just gave you the literal playbook. Look it up. University of Chicago, 2008, Cass Sunstein, Conspiracy Theories. The 5 different methods where he talks about infiltrating these groups, particularly online internet groups. Hanging out in their group chats, sending DMs, asking about, so guys, when are we going to do something? Is there anybody out there that's going to go do something? What's the plan when we go and do something? Hey, my fellow white Christian nationalists, I was just wondering when you guys planned on doing something. You got to be very careful. First and foremost, we genuinely mean it when we say we aren't pursuing a violent solution to any of these problems. The racial problems, the demographic changing so rapidly, the attack on our faith, all of these political issues, we're not pursuing violence in any way, shape, or form. We don't have conversations in blocked off group chats that are invite only about what we're going to do from a violent point of view. That's not happening. But there are people, anonymous individuals, who will send us DMs, who will somehow get invited to our group chats and just drop those little questions out there as feelers. So guys, when are we going to do something? And then when you respond, because I've been going back and forth with this kid for several weeks, and every single time I respond with the same explanation, we are doing something. We are in an information war. That's how we win this war, by getting information out there, waking people up, narrative strategy, articulation, explaining that white people exist as a group and that they have group interests no different than African black people having group interests, who certainly exist, no different than Jews having their own interests. So explaining these things from a morally unimpeachable, from an objective, factual lens, that's what keeps you safe. There's no need to talk about how you have these violent fantasies, how you want harmful things to happen to people. Hopefully you don't want that in the first place. But I just wanted you guys to be on the lookout, because this is not the first one. And I'm not even saying I know for sure this guy is a Fed. I'm telling you what to watch out for, and that you absolutely have to control how you communicate in every communication. Phone calls with friends, family, with other people you meet online, offline DMs, posts that you make, no hints of violence, no wink, wink, nod, nod to violence, because we don't need it. We are winning. We are winning the information war. People are waking up. People have black fatigue. People have Jew fatigue. People don't want to fight for Israel. This is happening on a national level. It's happening on a continental level. It's happening all throughout Europe. People are sick of the imposed, forced multiculturalism. They're sick of the open anti-Christian methods of the people in charge, whether it's the media, education, the government itself. We've all noticed it. We are all communicating amongst ourselves in a decentralized fashion to organize and resist against it. That's all that's required. Okay? You guys get it? Are you going to be safe with your communications? Are you going to use some intelligence when those people start asking you in your DMs, assuming, you go out and do some work and you're organizing people and building a platform for yourself or whatever it may be, and they start asking questions, you need to become immediately skeptical of that individual. You're better off disassociating with them. You're better off banning them from the group chat. You can give them one warning. I warned the guy today. I said, listen, I didn't hold any punches. I said, you sound like a Fed, constantly asking about when we're going to resort to violence. I told him that, because if he is a Fed, then the jig's up. And he had some way to respond saying, no, that's not what I meant. He actually tried to use scripture. He quoted an Old Testament verse from Samuel about destroying the Amalekites. And he said, see, God said we should resort to violence to destroy our enemies. And I said, hold on. Samuel is from the Old Testament. Christians are not in a covenant, in the same covenant that the Israelites of the Old Testament were. Christians are in a covenant with Jesus Christ, who established a new covenant, who gave us a new set of rules. And nowhere in the New Testament, not a single time, does Jesus even hint at turning to violence. There is a defensive violence that might be necessary to defend ourselves, but we do not go on violent offensive against anybody. That's what Jews do, and they cite that exact scripture among many of the other verses in the Old Testament about destroying entire people groups, nations, goyim. We are not Jews. We don't resort to the same tactics. We don't even resort to nonviolent but deceptive tactics such as lying, slander, propaganda, hasbara. We don't even do that. We're winning this war with 100% truth. They win this war by misrepresenting the news, by literally just flat out lying, staging false flag attacks, dressing up like the enemy in costumes. That's the only way they can succeed, through deception, because the truth speaks for itself. And so, no, we don't resort to the Jewish tactics of the Irgun or the Haganah, okay? The groups who actually formed what is now called the Israeli Defense Force, the IDF. What, you didn't know that that group was actually formed by two formally acknowledged terrorist organizations, the Irgun and the Haganah? You didn't know that in the 1940s, in the years leading up to Israel? Go look at the World Almanac from 1948. There is a month-by-month breakdown of the year immediately before, 1947, where there's a dozen or more references to Jewish terrorist group, the Haganah, Jewish terrorist group, the Irgun, kidnapped so-and-so, bombed so-and-so, raided X facility, stole this or that, murdered such and such, took these hostages, citizens that they were terrorizing. They literally created terrorism. That's the Jewish method of war. We're not Jews, okay? We will absolutely be violent in our defense of our faith if you come offensively at us, and we will have to resort to violent tactics in defense if you come at us with violence, attacking our people or our nation or our communities. That's common sense. We're supposed to defend ourselves. but we are not going on any kind of violent offense. And anyone who suggests that that's what's required to get what we desire, watch out for them, because they are trying to subvert this movement with people exactly like that. Be very aware. Cass Sunstein, we know the playbook, okay? We know what's up. We know how you operate. You guys don't even try to hide it. The Mossad's official motto, by way of deception, make war. You're fucking liars. It's literally in your religion that it's okay to lie to non-Jews. Your military agency broadcasts it freely. We know the deal, okay? The jig is up. Is there anything else I want to hit on? Okay. One last thing to wrap this up. I don't know if you guys would be interested in this, but I was in the gym the other day, rocking out to some good, high-tempo, aggressive music. The kind that gets your blood pumping, your testosterone up. It helps you lift, man. It puts you in a zone. And I was thinking, you know, I bet a lot of these other young men out there, even men my age, I don't consider myself young, other men out there who are taking their physical health into their own hands, who are pursuing the fitness lifestyle as I have demanded that you do, music really does help in the gym. And so I was thinking about putting together a summer 2025 White Sentience playlist for YouTube and sharing that out with you guys. I'm sure you're curious, like, what is this guy listening to in the gym, you know? How does he get amped up? How does he get in the right psychological space to go and, I was going to use a different word, to go and destroy those weights? I was going to use a word that rhymes with grape, but I think you get the point. Make those gains, you know? It does help. The pre-workout helps at a chemical level, but at a psychological level, having some good music in your ear to pump up that aggression and to get the aggression out as well. The physical activity, but also the mental relief of this kid over here talking about wanting to do violent things. When are we going to be able to, like, he needs permission to go be violent. Like, you don't have my permission. That's not the solution. Go listen to some music, okay? If you need to get those feelings out, go lift some weights. How about that? That's my prescription. If you have violent impulses, pray about them, lift some weights, okay? That's all you need to do, I promise. It'll bring the temperature down in your mind, especially the prayer. That's what I told him, by the way. I said, if you have violent thoughts, and another word of advice, let's just assume, and I was telling him, I think you're a Fed. Even if you're not a Fed, here's Uncle Josh's advice. Keep these violent thoughts and impulses you have to yourself. Not just because I don't want to hear them, but also because you're putting yourself in danger. You think you're just being truthful and transparent, and somehow that's going to earn my trust, maybe. I don't want to hear it for the reasons I described earlier. But more importantly, if you are a sincere, earnest guy who's just overreacting, you're still in that shock, you're shell-shocked from finding out what's really going on, and you're thinking about those violent things, you need to go pray about that. You need to be praying to Jesus and asking him, please show me how I can proceed with serenity, how I can approach this as you would have. How did Jesus resolve all those conflicts? Did he go out there with a sword and confront the Pharisees? No. He went out there and articulated his points of view, and he exposed their hypocrisy. What do you see me doing for an hour at a time when I get on these vlogs? What do you see Nick doing with his 1,500 episodes, each 1 to 2 to 3 hours long? He's never once suggested violence. He's always said the resolution comes through articulation, intelligence, courage, being sentient of the situation and being sentient of our identity. It comes through prayer. It comes through trust and faith. These are the Christian principles of war. This is what we cling to. These are the weapons we were given. We were given the sword, which is the Bible, the Word of God. We were given the shield, which is the faith. We were given the breastplate of righteousness. The full armaments of God have been given to us. They did not come in the form of AK-47s and machetes. Do you understand? So, hopefully this information was valuable to you guys. Some fresh perspectives to look at all these various topics. Let's bring it home with the most exciting thing of the day, though. White Sentience on Substack now. By the time you're watching this, it is available to watch on Substack. So please do subscribe. Get yourself, as I said, a monthly subscription that supports the channel. Hopefully it'll give me a little bit of marketing resources to amplify the message. Maybe even one day actually de-risk the financial risk that I take by putting my very successful career on the line to do this work. That would be nice. Imagine if I could actually do this full time and not even have to do 40 hours a week for the slave world. That would be really nice. That's never been my goal. I've never pursued this for that purpose, but I'm just talking about realistically in terms of capacity. I could be more effective in this mission if one day this work became a replacement for that. That would be nice, but I don't expect that. What I would only use those resources for, as I said, is a way to turn up the volume through marketing, through hiring additional help. I tried that earlier this year and it immediately fell apart because the individual was not aligned with the mission, unfortunately. It's hard enough just to find people to work with. Then you have to be able to pay them. So yeah, things are pretty difficult. So if you could support through Substack, I would love that. Either way, support the Instagram, Rumble, and YouTube by following, leaving comments, subscribing to those channels. That way you get notified whenever I drop a new vlog or a post or a story. Until next time, you guys, enjoy White Sentience. Please do tell me what you think. I'm eager to hear your feedback. Till next time, love you guys. Christ is King.
Beholden to Truth. Christ culture. White identity. And fitness lifestyle. Red pilling the masses. On the front lines. Against the synagogue of Satan.